I wrote a book. It's called Taking It to the Max. My name is Maxie Hales. Now, writing a book is not an easy thing. I'm sure you know that. So, Eric, congratulations to you. But one thing, writing a book is an achievement, but selling it is another thing. The financial involvement, yes, and all the other things that one has to go through in trying to bring that to a reality. But here's my advice to people. Every one of us in this room has got a story to tell. As one African proverb put it, until the lions can tell their own story, then it will be, in other words, it will be diluted by others. If it's not written, it's not counted. We all have a story to tell, and we must tell it. Tell it before we die. Tell it to the generation. Sit your grandmother, your grandfather down and write a book. Too often we've been told that if you want to hide anything from black people, put it in a book. Come on, let's prove them wrong. It's a lie. Because some of us do understand the necessity to write. That's the only way we're going to read. We're going to understand life. So put that down in a book. If it's not written, let me repeat. If it's not written, it's not counted. And when anybody asks you or challenges you, all you have to say to them, where is yours? Where is yours? Because you will be challenged. And also, there will be situations whereby your very family may get upset with you. You may lose them all if you're not careful. And no matter how diplomatic and sensitive we are, these things happen. So back to you, Mr. Navel. Good luck with the project. I haven't purchased a copy yet, but I'm guaranteed I'll buy one before I go through that door. So, just like to say good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Max. Can you hear me? Yeah, I don't have a loud voice like Max's, so I have to use a voice. The mic. Thank you very much for that, Maxie. I think it's important that we do document our past and the journeys that we've done for our younger people who follow us. Sometimes they do forget or don't understand the struggles that we've gone through. Our next greetings, welcoming greetings, will be from Dr. Marcia, who's the Chief Executive of Phoenix newspaper. Marcia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Navel Clark. It's wonderful to have you in Birmingham. Looking so rather dapper, if I may say so. I'm looking forward to reading your book because I must admit I have not read it as yet. But I will do, because I will take a different approach than most people, being a newspaper, and the support will be there for you. But in the meantime, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for turning up for this young man, because this is what we should do. And it's lovely to be in a room with like-minded people who find it important to come out and support causes like this. Now, it has been 2 years since I've left the house because we've been in lockdown. But I felt, after looking at the information that Philip sent to me, I thought, this is something that I'd make that journey to be a part of. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the Phoenix newspaper, because that's all I talk about. The Phoenix newspaper, although it's not an autobiography, it is my heartbeat. And 30 years ago, I had a dream. And that dream was to be included. But the newspapers that we had were very negative. I worked for Trinity Mirror with my dear partner here, Mr. Tony Williams, who's my sales and marketing director, please note. And, you know, after launching my first publication, which I named The Enterprise, boldly going where no man had gone before, because here you have a black woman then, if we want to use that, in a male-dominated industry, and I was about to turn the industry on its head. Because we're used to sensationalized news, we're used to news that grabs, you know, you go out, well, you don't have to do this anymore because we've now got the internet, so everybody puts news out there. So I do a positive newspaper. A newspaper that gets people to understand each other from different cultures. We can be born in Jamaica, and I'm proud of that. As a young girl, I lived in Clarendon in a very, very small village called Jericho, in the bush, running around barefoot. And here I am in the UK now, with over 800,000 readers in print throughout Birmingham, Solihull, Sutton Coldfield, right down to Burntwood and Lichfield. And I'm known in London, where I'm known very well. So anything is possible. And that's why it was important for me to show you homage, you know, because it's lovely to see our community getting up and putting pen to paper. And for me, I will be featuring your book and hopefully get an interview with you for our Black History Month section. I have 8 million readers online. So there's a two-pronged thing to our publication. It's a worldwide publication, a local, national, and international publication. I just want to stop there because I could go on forever. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Marcia. I think you've made a friend for life by calling up Navel young. Yes, yes. And he certainly is dapper. I've never seen him without a suit, and he's always looking very smart, I must say. And thank you in terms of the work that you're doing around the newspaper and putting a black perspective in terms of our history and what we do in the community. We're going to get on to Navel in just a moment, but Mr. Philip Murphy, chairman of the AMC Limited and New Star, and was also political in many years ago, a few years ago, and played a significant role in terms of how the council was run as a council. So there is some history in terms of politics here in this room. I dare say that everyone here has their own story about that. Phil, could you come up and introduce Navel in terms of the work?
Thank you very much. I won't use a mic, even though I think my voice is very dulcet and I don't normally speak very loudly. I'm going to try it today. I find mics very intrusive. Can I say welcome again? No, I won't use a mic.
Sorry, for the purpose of...
You say I need to use this. I find mics very, as I said, intrusive. But anyway, I'll try. Mr. Clark, it's my honor, pleasure, privilege, if you will, to introduce you. I won't say very much about what you have done in your treatment. I know that you will. I'll leave that for you to tell us. Just to say that Navel has a connection here, a complete connection actually. Navel, one of the many things Navel has done is not just to write an autobiography, but he has also organized the PNP in the city and in England. And in doing so, the PNP here in Birmingham was very much part of his initiative. And he worked with people like Steve Batchelor, a name which you probably know, Rudy Gale, Mr. Sankey, and indeed, Rudy Gale was the first chairman of the African London Centre, and Steve Batchelor is another name I didn't mention. Steve Batchelor, leading member of this community, sadly died now. He was the first coordinator of the African London Centre. So this man, in what he has done, has made a real achievement. What I want to do briefly is to say something about the importance of writing an autobiography historically in the context of black people. I won't be long about this. long story. But I think a number of people here might find this very, very helpful, very useful, who haven't really understood what writing an autobiography is about in the context of the struggle of black people for freedom, liberation, and against all forms of injustice. So we find that in 1789, a man called Eduardo Iquana wrote a book, his autobiography, in which he talked about his life in Africa, his life in Europe, and in the New World, and the fight against slavery, and refuted a lot of the myths about Africa. We move on to the 19th century. In 1850, a great man called Frederick Douglass, who a lot of you probably know, wrote his autobiography. It's called The Narrative of a Runaway Slave. No, you can't find a man who's written better about how to fight against an oppression. You find all of that in Frederick Douglass' autobiography. But Frederick Douglass was a great man who was a great abolitionist, fought against slavery, made a lot of remarkable speeches around the world, including this country. One of the many things he said is that the limits of tyrants are described by the endurance of those whom they oppress. I repeat that the limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. A very important statement to remember. He also says power doesn't concede anything without a struggle. Very, very important. So we move on a little further in the 20th century. We find a man called Booker T. Washington, who wrote a book called Up From Slavery, and in it, Booker T. Washington talked about the work he did for creating jobs, employment, and education for black people, and made a fantastic contribution to what was then called the uplift movement. A contemporary of Booker T. Washington, another name you probably all know, a man called W.E. Du Bois, great academic, great activist, great Pan-Africanist. He wrote a remarkable autobiography about the 60 years of his life. Tremendous. He talked very much something that Maxie probably knows about and Navel knows about, the difficulty of writing an autobiography. How much of your personal life you mentioned, you don't mention, but you leave a tremendous book to read. And of course, very soon after he published his autobiography, around 1963, we had the great Malcolm X, who I know you all know, wrote his autobiography. And of course, in Malcolm X's autobiography tells us so much about how human beings can develop and change. Malcolm started as a thief, a pimp, you name it, everything was awful, and then became one of the great statesmen of all time. And you can see all of this in Mike Lee's wonderful film called Malcolm X. Tremendous film, worth seeing. And of course, just around that time, and some of you might be saying, yes, mentioned in a woman, you're wrong. I'm going to mention the great Angela Davis, who then wrote her autobiography. Angela Davis, a great academic, one of the great academics. I've always considered myself a philosopher. I don't like saying that. I did spend 7 years studying philosophy, but she was a philosophy teacher. And indeed, only this morning in the Post, I had this, which is called Angela Davis, Freedom is a Constant Struggle. She is, fortunately, she's still alive. All the other people are mentioned are dead. And just in around 1998, the great Kwame Ture, the Black Power leader, wrote his wonderful, wonderful autobiography called Ready for Revolution. Worth reading, a book which produces me here, where he talked about his life and struggle in the South of America for civil rights and in Africa. So, and then that, of course, takes us to Maxim, who was published in the city, his autobiography. So you can see there's a tremendous tradition of writing autobiography. And I'll end by saying, not only Maxim, but we have in that wonderful lineage, in that wonderful tradition, Mr. Navel Clark writing his autobiography. So can I say, Navel, welcome to Birmingham.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I say, Mr. Chairman, comrades, friends, there's a lot of names that we have been called over the years. When I came here, they looked at me, they just looked black bastard. Then they called me color. Then they called me Afro-Caribbean. And then they called me all kind of names. Today I understand it to be it's in all of this. As Butcher Banton said, anywhere I go, I'm a Jamaican, no matter what. I'd like to thank all the persons who have made comments prior to that, but in the 2 cents of the word, I want to especially thank Marcia for her expression of being a young man. And at 84, I feel very good.
Wow. And still standing?
Dancing, sir. I dance every Friday night.
Wow.
The book will reflect some of the things that I have done in the early days. I want to tell you a story why I wrote the book, as distinct from what is in the book. Because a lot of people might not have experienced the period that we went through in those days. I came here from Jamaica in August of 1955. I did not leave Jamaica as an immigrant or migrant, as what they might call it. I came as a student to learn engineering. Unlike my fellow travelers, they came to look work. And as you can, some of you might not know, because you're too young to know that, there were a lot of people in Jamaica at the time who were not able to find work. They weren't skilled. Some were farmers eking out a living from the hillside because the rich landowners had the level lands, so they had to go to the hillside. Some were not fully educated enough to get a job. They did not pass the normal exams after elementary school. Like I did, I had to sit the first year after elementary school. So I was really well, I wouldn't say educated, but I learned a lot. My parents decided that I should move on to study engineering. So the opportunity arose when this Windrush period approached. Prior to that, the mass movement was to either Cuba or in 1944, they opened up the opportunity for people to go on farm work to the United States. So many of the persons, when the opportunity arose for the migration to London, to England, they seized the opportunity, and I followed in that particular time. There are not many persons who traveled at that time were of my age, were much older people. People in their 40s, people in their late 20s. And about 99.9% were much older. There's a very small percentage of us who came as teenagers. I was just 18 when I came. The adult age in England at the time of recognition was 21. We had to be paid minimum wage if you got a job, which is £4.10 a week. If you're over 21, you get a little more. Therefore, you can imagine when we came that persons were very, very badly paid at the time. And because they had no skills, the menial jobs they had to accept. We had a story of a man who lived in Paddington, where I started from, who went for a job one day. When he applied and he went to the personnel department, they called it at that time, not the HR, said to him, what kind of job do you want? He said, anything. He said, well, you have to explain what is it you want. He says, well, anything, sir. He says, I have a vacancy for a millwright. He said, oh, no, I don't know that. He said, I have another vacancy for a machine operator. He said, no, sir. He said, well, unfortunately, the only thing that I have left is an auxiliary job. And the man said, but what a wicked man like this. My the best job. And they asked me all them things about millwright and all them things, not knowing what the word meant, of course. And he turned up for work the next morning, accepting the job. He turned up for work, and he was given a wheelbarrow and a shovel. And he nearly dropped dead. Because he did not know the meaning of the word. So there are a lot of persons who arrived here at the time, not well educated, but in search of a job. I was different. I had some knowledge. I was able to read, write, and do all kind of things in that regard. But the distinction between those who arrived at an older age and the teenagers like myself was very noticeable, because we were not in a position to accept what the older people who came with a responsibility back home, whether they are from the Caribbean, other parts of the Caribbean islands, or from Jamaica. Each and every one came with a purpose to find a job so they can support their family back home. Early
and international publication.
Phrase that we knew.
I just want to stop there because I could
earn,
go on forever.
learn, and
Thank you
return.
very much for listening.
That was our motto at that time.
Thank
Many of us
made a friend for life by calling Navel young. He's always looking very smart, I must say. And thank you in terms of the work that you're doing around the newspaper and putting a black perspective in terms of our history and what we do in the community.
Want to put forward
we're going to get on to
was much fortunate than
Navel
older
in just a moment.
I had
But
no responsibility
Mr.
at all.
Philip Murphy,
I was a young man. I
chairman
had no
of
family per
the
se.
AMC Limited and New Style,
Sent for my
and
children.
was also political
by a house.
in many years ago, or a few years ago, and played a significant role in terms of how the council was run.
But because
as a
I
council.
have a little bit of
So
education,
there is,
I
some
resented
politics here.
the way in which
I dare say that
some of the
everyone
white
here has their
people
own
started
story
to talk
about
to me
Phil, could you come up and
as if I was
introduce,
inferior to them.
Navel
I resented
in
it.
terms of the work that he's been doing?
Because back in Jamaica, at that time, I came from what they call a privileged family, with the intention to study, not to work. And when I went to certain places, those persons who were managers,
Sorry, for the
who
purpose
was
of,
a cut above the
you say
average
I need to use this. I
English.
find Mike's very, as I said, intrusive. But anyway, I'll try.
They were trying to speak to
Mr.
me
Clark, it's my honor,
as if I
pleasure,
was
privilege, if
inferior
you
to
will,
them.
to
And I resented
introduce
it.
you. I won't say very
Only
much
to find
about
out later on that I was more educated than most of them.
I leave that for you to tell
But they
us.
send these people
Just to say that
to
Navel
the West
has
Indies, to
a
Jamaica.
connection here with Birmingham.
A white man,
Connection,
you
actually.
worship him. You believe
Navel,
that he's
one
the
of the many
greatest thing
things
because
Navel's done
he's
is
a
not
boss.
just to write an autobiography,
That
but
is what the
he's
system
organized the PNP
was
in,
at that
in
time.
the city and in England.
He is
And,
as a
in
white
doing
man,
so,
he is the boss.
and the PNP here in Birmingham
God
was very much
Almighty,
part of his
almost.
initiative. And he worked with
Fact
people
of the
like
matter,
Steve Batchelor,
when we arrived here, those of us
Rudy
who had a
Gale,
little education
Mr. Sankey,
realized
and indeed Rudy Gale
that
was
they
the
were not
first
half
chairman
as
of the
educated
Afro-Caribbean
as we were.
Center, and Steve Batchelor is another name I didn't mention. Steve
That's a
Batchelor,
fact.
leading member of this.
Many of the
sadly
persons
died
who
now.
change the system to suit them. You have to get involved in the system in order to change something. You can't stay outside and expect for how many hundreds of years they have exploited us as slaves and what have you, and expect them to change because you said it. And I was determined then, having decided that I'm going to join them, the first thing I did, which many of those persons who came along at that time, I used the opportunity to educate myself. Not by going to school every day, but every evening after leaving work, I went to the library. Books are in the library that you can read to do everything. Every book is there. And I wanted to know about the white man, the English, the British people. If you don't know your enemies or your friends, then you're in trouble. But you must know what they're about in order to challenge them. And having done that, I find myself learning more than I would imagine before, because the opportunity was there for me on evenings, spending time. And after reading all that I can for about 2 hours, then I'm off to the club somewhere to have a dance and to have a drink. But my first order of business was to learn as much as I could in order to know more about the people I'm dealing with. I had to do all kind of jobs. I even peeled what they call spuzz. We then in Jamaica call it Irish potato. Remember that? Only because when we get the seeds come from abroad, it went through Ireland as the persons who export the thing. And on the bag, it's called Irish. So we call it Irish potato. I went to the greengrocer one day when I just came, and at that time potatoes were a penny a pound. And when I went to the stall, the man said, "Can I help you, laddie?" I said, "Yes, sir. I need 1 pound of Irish potato." The man went, "Irish? Effing Irish? Irish don't have potatoes. What the hell are you talking about? Irish? I got King Edwards, mate. King Edwards." And having said that, I left the damn potato so fast and head home, because I was surprised to see this man just abusing me and using all kind of expletives because I mentioned the word Irish. I didn't know they hated the Irish at that time so badly. So you find that some of the experiences that we have, a lot of our people who came at that time were not engaged in those involved, because they were there busy working, shunting on the railways, working in factories. And when they finish work, they head home, go to the pub, and next morning they get up and they go back to work again. Younger people were busy up and down, doing all kind of things like interacting with younger people and things like that. It was difficult. But we had to engage ourselves because life would be tedious if we did not. Now, up to 1960, I had about 4 different jobs, and I was fired from 3 of them. I was fired from the peeling the potatoes because I was there doing a good job, following the menu, what they require, mash, chips, all the boiled, following that. And then they bring in a young white man to assist me. He started to prepare the potatoes. Haphazardly, they leave skins and everything, and they blame me. So they fire me instead of him. Fired me instead of him. And I was wondering, what the hell have I done? I've been following this thing before this man come, and nobody said anything. And now that this happened, said, no, I will not accept this. Will not accept this. Having done all of that, I went to another job. And because I gallivanted too much, went off dancing in the middle of the day at a place called Astoria, they fired me again when I come back the next day. But my life changed in 1960, which was the starting point of whatever I'm doing today. I joined a company named the Glacier Metal Company in Alperton, Wembley, near Wembley. The largest engineering combine at the time in the country. As a storeman, 2 weeks on the job, a lady came up to me and says, you have to join the union. So I says, union? What kind of union are you talking about? He said, the trade union. He said, we are 100% shop in this department, and if you don't want to join the union, you have to find a job elsewhere in the company. So I joined the union at the time. And at the same time, she said to me, if you put a penny extra on the shilling, 1 shilling to join the union, put a penny extra, you can become member of the Labour Party. I said, sign me up, I don't care, because I don't know what the union was about or what the Labour Party was about. So having signed up, I was then happy to be a part of this organization because I heard so much after that of what the union is doing. A few months later, there was an election for shop representative. And someone put my name on the nomination sheet. When I saw it, I protested. I said, no, I don't want anything to do with this union. Then someone go behind my back and sign in acceptance. Not a black person either. It was a white person who did that. When the vote was counted on the election day, my name get the most support. And automatically became the chairman of the shop committee. I didn't know nothing about the trade union or nothing like that. The next I knew, 2 ladies came up to me and they said, Nev, you know why I voted for you in such abundance? I says, no. He said, the way you carried yourself and the way you dressed. Thank you very much, man. And your whole mannerism. Because we felt that you were different. And I'll tell you this, from the day I bought my first Burton's tailored suit in 1955, December, I have never, in the 20 years, one day in my life after acquiring more suits, take off, I didn't wear anything but a full suit. No mismatch, jacket and tie, and this is why the necktie won. The boys that I was with all dressed the same way, immaculately dressed at all times. And the other stupid boys were wondering how we get all the girls. But didn't know our technique. We were called the necktie gang. Everywhere we go, we were well suited. At one stage, I had 8 suits, 1 for each day plus 1. Today in Jamaica, I have 13. But this is how I carry myself all my life, since 1955. No mismatch, must be a full suit, matching shoes, everything. Because this is what. And having done that, your first impression counts. Because when my peers, my white counterparts saw us, we look different from the other black people that they see walking around. Therefore, you're having a greater opportunity, and people don't understand this. I see some boys wearing their trousers on the bottom of the pants and their bottom and their underwear hanging out and all this kind of thing. Stupid. Because if any of them come to my place to get a job, they wouldn't get it. The first impression counts. Then your mannerism, how you conduct yourself. Right? This is a very important thing. And the young people of today don't understand that. We have to carry ourselves in a manner, no matter whether you are in a white country or a black country. It is important that you present yourself in a manner which will impress. There used to be a saying once that self-recommendation is no, what they call it now, you can't recommend yourself. Nonsense. Who know you more than you? If you don't recommend yourself, who going to recommend? Nobody can. You who know you more than you? Eh? So you have to carry yourself in a manner, no matter where you are in the world. And when I came back on several occasions to this country, having gone back to Jamaica, I realized that even my grandchildren that was born here have not seized the opportunity to get a good education and become somebody who I can say, look, this is my grandson in whom I'm well pleased. They missed out. If my children did not join me in Jamaica in 1976, each of them was put in schools, and they had, my daughter sitting there, she became a manager after leaving school for a company in Jamaica. My sons were accountants. One is the director of HR in America. If they had been here all their life, when it was said in the 60s that the black children were holding back the white counterparts in school because they have not been able to understand the curriculum or the English language. They wanted to have a separate learning for black children. Nonsense. Nonsense. But the system is what is at play here. Even today as we gather, the system is at work. This is how the slave trade came in. This is how the whole of this matter of your commerce, enterprise, everything. Now you cannot beat the system from standing outside. As I said, you have to get involved in the system. And I remember when I look at Alderman, Honorable Alderman Philip, I feel proud. Because in 1969, when I formed Michael Manley, Prime Minister, at the time he was opposition leader, appointed me national organizer for the People's National Party in England. Many of the persons who joined the party with me at that time asked the question, having lived 5,000 miles away from Jamaica, which the PNP is the party out there, what benefit do we derive from joining the party in England? Benefit? None. But what I had to do in 1969 was to convince the Labour Party in England, British Labour Party, to which I was then a very powerful member in London, that 99.9% of black people in England voted for Labour, and therefore the PNP groups must be affiliated to the local Labour parties, which they accepted. And I went about campaigning for a man in Wandsworth named Ken Enright. After that period when the affiliation took place, he was running for Labour in Wandsworth. And I campaigned for him, 69. I went to a house. I used to have to do knock and door to door, still do, door to door. And I went there, this white lady saw me, and I said, "Good evening, madam." And next thing before I should open my mouth again, she attempted to slam the door, so I put my right foot and jammed the door. Today, there's a crack in my ear where she slammed the door on me. And I had to limp. After that, I limped the other 2 doors down. And there's this nice black lady who opened the door. And I said, "Good evening, ma'am." And I'm a kind of bit shaky because my foot was hurting. I says, "We are from the Labour Party, and we are campaigning for Mr. Enright to be a councillor." He said, "Labour Party?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." He said, "Oh, well, I used to vote for the Labour Party back home. That was Bustamante's party." She did not know the difference that the Labour Party in Jamaica is the Conservative in England. And the Labour Party in England is the PNP in Jamaica. And she called her husband and she says, "Come here, somebody from the Labour Party." And the chief, as I used to call Bustamante, the chief. I used to vote for the chief. Man said, "Yes, man, I used to vote for the chief. I'm going to vote for this man. Him don't know the difference." He said, "Thank you very much, sir." We left and he got the vote for Ken Enright. Then after that in Brent, because of the affiliation to the Labour Party, the guy named Nat Jackson became the first councillor, black councillor, in Brent in the 70s. So you find that a lot of work had to be done, and I've done all of that in order to help my people. But I wanted also that the persons who come after me would have something to be inspired with. And when I came back here in 1997, I realized that nobody ever heard of me at all in the area. I was associated at the time in my struggle because in 1969 I was the first of my color to become elected as the General Secretary of a trade union organization, the Brent Trades Council. First, before Bill Morris. But nobody ever heard of it. It was not written in any place. The newspaper had me at one time, the Wembley News, as the most powerful man in Brent. And when I called him in 1997, and he says, "Where is this article that I can get a copy of?" Can't find it. Can't find it. And I said to myself, I've heard so many stories about persons who and what their struggles in England were. My struggles were few, but I achieved a lot because I was on several committees. And I thought at the time, they put me there in order to see me fail and to say, "You see, did a black man something and him can't even manage it." But I never failed. And one alderman at my send-off party, Alderman Philip Hartley, who is mentioned in the book, made a remark that frightened everybody. He said, "I hope that when he goes to Jamaica, he fails so that he can come back to us. But knowing him, he will never fail." I think that it is important that people understand that you have, like Bob Marley said, get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Don't be passive. The passive group came up in the 50s. But the second and third generation of those persons have not done enough to uplift themselves in this country. And I'm proud to hear of you people who have become doctors, doctors of letters, doctors of medicine, doctors, and aldermen. You've been involving in this thing. And I'm glad to see so many people now becoming members of parliament. 1974, when Alderman Hartley called me, he said to me, Nev, prepare yourself because the constituency committee of the Labour Party in your division, in your constituency, expect you to replace Larry Pavitt as MP. And I said, my God, at that time I had already committed to Michael Manley to go back to Jamaica. Or else I believe that I would be the first black MP in England. But my achievements is something that I am proud of because Michael Manley asked me to return to Jamaica in 1974. I didn't go back until 1975. I became a Deputy Island Supervisor of the National Workers' Union, the largest union in the Caribbean. I established a clerical union called the Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees, UCASE, at the end of 1975. I became a senator in 1993, and I served for continuous 23 years unbroken service. And I want to just correct a misunderstanding that appeared on the news media over here recently, that I'm the longest serving ever senator in Jamaica's history. I'm the second longest service in Jamaica's history, but the longest serving PNP senator in Jamaica's history. And for that I'm very proud. But brothers and sisters, let me say to you today, I am very happy that I have been blessed with all of the achievements that I have had. And I did it not because the people were black, because they were working class. I have never had the opportunity to talk about black people per se as a trade unionist. What I did was to the working class, because 99% of the black people formed that group of working class people. So we were trying to organize and to protect their interests in the process. So, let me conclude by saying this. There are many persons who believe that the thing is stuck against them in Jamaica. The whole system is stuck against them. But I remember when I became involved in the union and in the library, I come across a white man's poem. My name is Rudyard Kipling. And he wrote a poem called The Wage Slaves. He was at the time what they call, and his family was a bond servant, which is another name for slaves. Jamaica white. And he wrote this article in 1901 about the conditions that they were experiencing as white people. So I don't want people to believe that it's because you're black, you're suffering from this. White people used to suffer too. They used to work 1 shilling per week, 72 hours a day in England. That's how the unions came in. But to get this information, you have to read a lot. You have to study a lot because people don't know these things. They say, well, because I'm black and this. But white people suffered also because of the system that they had. You had the gentries, the peers and the lords and who looked down on the peasants. You wonder how the name come then when you go to the House of Commons. Commoners. And they had the upper house, the House of Lords, which is equivalent to my position in England. If I was in London, the upper house, then I would be called a lord. But all you have to say, Lord Jesus, he has done well for himself. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Neville, for that inspiring talk. I think you only scratched the surface in terms of your journey and your life here, so that means that you have to buy the book. And the book is on sale at the back for, I think it's £16, and he will sign the book personally for you following the questions and answers. I'm not going to go into much detail, but there are times when we fail to recognize the people that have made our journey that less difficult. And Neville has been one of those. And I have to say, we personally know each other. And every time I land in Jamaica, I give him a call, and we go out and have a little bit of a drink and a conversation. Yes, just a little bit. We don't have to go into that detail. Just a little bit of a drink. But I have to say, he has influenced me in terms of my politics, and he's influenced a number of people in terms of their journey around politics and activism in the community. And I have to say, he was also one of the leading individuals that established the dialogue to have the Jamaican diaspora, which involved the diasporans in the whole world. So that in itself is a mean feat in terms of trying to collect Jamaicans from all over the world to have dialogue and to try and support Jamaica in their struggles as well. But I want to go into the questions and answers. If we can keep the questions to questions and not statements, I would be very grateful. And I'll take two at a time, and then we'll see how we go in terms of how we go along for time. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Don't be shy. We're in a family gathering. Yeah, he's saying, did he get too thorough in terms of his question? Sorry, Ricky.
Jamaicans came to this country. To what extent do you think that held us back now as a community? The fact that we came for a short period of time, for 5 years originally. Do you think that we've still got that sort of temporary mentality now?
I believe that there has been a marked change in the temperamentality of a number of persons. There's a lot of movement from those days because people are now more aware of their ethnicity, their ability to do certain work, and they have been insisting at least you have an opportunity where you can demand from the system, because you are more educated today than we were in those days. You have achieved much, and I believe that it is some improvement. But I also think that a number of the youngsters are not applying themselves because they take it for granted, having born here, they take it for granted that, just like their white counterparts in school and things like that, and they can see. We came with a purpose, but they have no purpose and to live a life. And to grow up and enjoy what they can. That is the difference. The younger people. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, you.
Became confrontational, and now the youths are still confrontational now.
Well, in any society, you'll find that when people are born, they take for granted the things that they see around them and don't know this trouble that you, the parent, went through in order to get it. This is the problem. And you have to encourage them. You have to be on their backs, so to speak, to say, look, you have to go and do this, and some resent it, but you have to be a strong parent and make sure that your children listen to you. You have to be a good guardian. I am using the example of my children because I was a strong parent, and they tried to follow in my footsteps. And unfortunately, they didn't get into the union or politics, but they have achieved much that I can say I'm proud of. So there is this is, you know, thing where you have to be strong with your children.
Any questions? Any more questions?
Yeah, since the inception of the diaspora, what would you say is the greatest impact that the diaspora has had?
We started off in the I think it's in the 90s, early 90s, to look at the involvement of Jamaicans living abroad in Jamaica at Parliament. Prior to the 1990s, I think it's in 1975, we had a returning resident in the name of Headley Cunningham, who became a councillor in St. James in Montego Bay. And one of his presentations was that Jamaicans abroad should be given the opportunity, like in Guyana, to vote. My PNP group all over the country consulted, and we decided that it would not be wise for Jamaicans to vote because they were voting out of sentimentality only and not on the issues that affects the various constituencies. So in the 1990s, we said we want to have more involvement with Jamaicans living abroad. They were sending money. They were voicing their opinions in various ways. And we wanted to get them involved in the Jamaican system more because by that time, technology was on the rise. And therefore, they would be able to observe from afar what is happening in Jamaica and become more enlightened so they may be able to participate. One thing they said, Derek came as part of that delegation from England, some from Africa, some from as far as Ethiopia, to the Joint Select Committee that I was on to talk about the diaspora. And what they wanted to have is someone sitting in the Senate, because you couldn't have them in the House of Representatives because they would have to be voted for in a constituency, and the Constitution of Jamaica did not allow that. But appointment to the Senate was a possibility because it was either you're appointed by the Prime Minister or appointed by the leader of opposition. And once they have selected the person abroad, you could not have more than two anyway, so you have to have a regional representative, like some one person in America, one in Canada, or somebody at that time, to be able to think. So we started off all of that, and Delano Franklin, who was then a senator with me, spearheaded that journey on behalf of the government. But as time go by and elections run, the other party get in power, and they did not have the kind of drive that we had in creating the opportunity. But I understand that from time to time they have diaspora conferences that they attend in Jamaica. The last two I did not attend it. And, but I think it is important that now with the advent of technology and information is flowing by the minute, things happening in Jamaica, and you hear it before I hear it in Jamaica. So you are more enlightened and more equipped now to have a greater participation. But it will depend on the will of the government of Jamaica. And I don't think under this government that we have there, you're going to have any will. You have won't, not will.
Can I ask a question? What was your greatest issue as General Secretary for a union in England?
I think well, you should ask me what was my greatest moment. My greatest moment was in 1971. Apart from being elected the first black man as a trade union organization in 1969. But in 1971, we had what they call the Great March, when Edward Heath's government tried to continue to put the pressure on the trade unions in England. You know, Barbara Castle in 1968 had presented under the Labour Party, Harold Wilson's government, a document called In Place of Strife. That document was rejected by the trade unions all over England and Scotland and Wales. When the Conservative won in 1969, Edward Heath, under the leadership of a great and wicked, I said great, but great racist, I consider him. My name, Sir John Donaldson, a Conservative judge, to put in place their own version of In Place of Strife, which was even worse than what Barbara Castle had put in her document. So we decided, and we met at Croydon, from all over a selected group, and I was proud to know that I was one of those elected, nominated, to attend that meeting, to plan and strategize how to defeat the bill. We came up with a wording, kill the bill. And in 1971, January, every trade unionists from all over. It's called the greatest march in 300 years, the Great March. And I was so proud, damn proud to be a part of that, because at that time there was only 2 black men, myself and a guy named Winchester James, could be seen carrying the banner of the Brent Trades Council. Miles and miles of people back from Charing Cross, where we started, to Hyde Park, to Trafalgar Square, to Westminster. That was my proudest day, because I was part of a historic situation called the Great March, and it is reflected in my book.
And what would you say in terms of black people to join the union? Because there appears to be a reduction of black people in the union.
That time, black people did not participate in the activities of the union. They joined the union because they had to. the workplace were unionized, so they had to join the union. But to take an active part, nah. As a matter of fact, when I told them that I became a shop steward, my own people tell me, leave it alone. It's why people think that. Leave it alone. It discouraged me. And when my name started to be brandished about in the high places, they congratulate me. What hypocrites. You know what I mean? Because they're the first one to tell me, don't do it. But now, I see more people are being involved. And, you know, at those days, the unions control the Labour Party. The Labour Party was born out of the trade union movement by men like Kerr Hardy and Ramsey MacDonald, those persons. If I'm giving you a little lesson of the history, it's okay, good like that. But the union was power. Champion, the first union organization, they banished them to Australia, which was a penal colony for England at that time. They called them the Tadpole Martyrs, in a place called Tadpole. Brand, send them off, ship them, and by the time, those days, you know, we didn't have aeroplanes going to Australia, a ship. So they hoped that many of them would die on the way down under. Right? That was a convict colony at the time. Every time you do anything bad in England, they ship you off to Australia. Right? So today, I've seen a lot of people being involved in unions and politics. And I'm very happy. Very happy. But then I think they understand that if you don't join the system, you can't do anything.
Should black people still go for the Labour Party in the 21st century?
Well, you know, the Conservative in my days, and still for all, I think is the same thing. They are not necessarily for the black people per se. Well, I am glad to see most of my Indian friends, most of them is on that side, and they have been doing a good job. But for us, we were always part of the Labour Party movement, as working class. Conservatives is always for the rich and powerful, barons and earls and all that kind of thing. They were the one who created. In the early 70s, they had a group of conservative people they call themselves the Monday Club, headed by a man named Jonathan Guinness, of the Guinness fame, the one that you drink. They had Duncan Sandy, Anthony Eden, all those persons, and even Enoch Powell, who were part of that group, who dictate policy for the conservatives. So you find that black people has never been too welcomed. What they did in the early 70s, there was a champion weightlifter, and Louis Martin, in Derby. Black man, popular guy. He was the champion weightlifter in England. And Derby was an area that is a strong Labour Party constituency in that area. And I don't know if they give him some money, but they woo him over to represent the Conservative Party in Derby. And the people revolted and said, look how we grew up this young man, nurture him, and now he's going to join it. And they never heard of Louis Martin from that day onwards. They voted against him, and that's the last you ever heard of Louis Martin. They were not in favor. But today, a lot of people come to you because we, and myself included, try to get black people involved in the Labour Party and the trade union movement. And I feel good that there's I wanted more, but then again you have to go in stages, I suppose.
Just to ask you about your leadership role as the leader of a large trade union in Jamaica. What was the relationship that you had with those prime ministers? Because I think you served, must be under about 6 prime ministers, or was it?
In 1969, when Michael Manley became president of the People's National Party, I got a letter in June of 1969. When I got home, my wife said that there's a letter from Mr. Michael Manley for you. I had no knowledge. Who was Michael Manley? I know Norman Washington Manley because he came in 1958 during, as a matter of fact, the Notting Hill riot in 1958. I was living in Paddington then. And he was the person who came up, 2 leaders from the Caribbean who came up to kind of mediate and, help the black in Notting Hill. So we followed him on the day when he arrived and walked around. But I'd never heard of Michael Manley, which is his son. And when I opened the letter, he's inviting me, having heard of my involvement in the trade union movement here, to help to plan his visit to England in the September of that year. And I said, how can this man I don't even know who he is asking me to do? But it appears that my achievements and my fame had reached the shores of Jamaica. And he asked me to do that. So I thought hard until after I agreed. The rest of the story is in the book.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm going to end the questions and answers, but we'll have Frank, who is a leading poet in Birmingham, to just recite a few poems before I ask Beverly Lindsay to give the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dave Wilkes. I'm the CEO of Just Divine Poems, based here in Birmingham. I've recently just completed my 1,800th piece, and at 50 I'm just warming up. I'm uplifted and I'm encouraged by what I've heard today, and I would just like to share a couple of pieces which I feel that's relevant for today. The first piece I'm going to share with you all is called Dreams. A dream will never come true if you don't start with a dream idea. A dream will never come true if you're not prepared to take your life up an extra gear. Stretch. Go on, stretch a little more. The type of stretch like you're tiptoeing on your bedroom floor. At least once a day. Imagine yourself living your dream and taking your positive self-belief somewhere astronomical where it's never been. Thank you. So that was Dreams, and another one that I'm going to share with you is called Comfort Zone. I'm not sure if anybody's in a comfort zone right now, but if you are, today is the time when we really need to put that to one side. Comfort zone. To understand whether you're at work or at home, I think today, please come out of your comfort zone. Because the same old, it makes your life become thinner and thinner. When you come out of your comfort zone, it now turns you into a champion and a winner. Be with the elite. You won't be alone when you commit yourself coming out of your comfort zone. Coming out of your comfort zone, yes, there's going to be a little bit of pain. But the end result is going to feel lovely, like when Tarzan rescued Jane. You see, I've done it. Each day, not doing the norm. I wish I would have done it from the first day I was born. Coming out of your comfort zone, now you're not wrapped up in cotton wool. It now releases this powerful energy for you to live your life to the full. God bless you.
Thank you very much for that, Dave, and apologies for getting your name wrong. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. Thank you. Neville would just like to say just one quick.
I was remiss in my first approach to the speech. I want to remind Max, Mr. Max, of his presentation, because this matter of the World Trade Center's bombing, very, very serious. Today is the anniversary. I would love for you all to stand with me for a moment's silence, because it is serious. All right?
Thank you very much. And if I could call Dr. Beverly Lindsay, Chairman of the Association of Jamaica National, proprietor of Diamond Travel, to say a vote of thanks.
Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm glad they did the vote of thanks. So I was going to do it. Not the moment of silence. You know, I wasn't going to let the moment pass. So thank you so much for doing that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, Senator, former Senator. And I'd like to thank all the organizers of this event for asking me to do the vote of thanks. I was also briefed that I should say a little bit about myself, and I said I don't like talking about myself. Anyway, I'll give you just a quick summary. As you know, most of you know me, I'm Beverly Lindsay. I came from Jamaica as a young teenager to complete my secondary education. I became pregnant became a teenage mother very soon. Then ventured on to a career in nursing and midwifery. Then I left and went on to do community work. Some of you may know me from Harambee. I was very instrumental in establishing two major financial institutions in the United Kingdom, from Jamaican Financial Institution. I worked for Victoria Mutual for several years whilst establishing Diamond Travel in 1987. I am a founder member of the Association of Jamaica National, which was formed in 1990. It was formerly the Institute of Jamaica National, and that came out of in 1988 when Gilbert struck Jamaica. We formed a committee to raise funds for Gilbert. I formed a committee and got some people involved, and after that we handed over the money. We decided to form a structured organization. Many debate was done at the Afro-Caribbean Resource Center. Yeah, yes, with Rudy Gale and Steve Batchelor. And I told you too, I was the first, I'm not political now, but I was the first woman to join the PNP group back in those days with Rudy and Steve Batchelor. I used to go up and down, meet Manley and everything when he comes to London. So, I've been around, showing up my age. And the senator mentioned too that in order sometimes to help a community, you have to go outside the box and do other things. So I'm a Rotarian. I'm past president of the Rotary Club of Birmingham. I was the 99th president and the first black woman to be a president of that club. I was appointed as a deputy lieutenant, and I'll tell you, if you want to know more about that, you can ask me later. In 2013, and then was appointed as the Vice Lord Lieutenant of the West Midlands in 2017, the first female to be in that role in the 500 years history since Lord Lieutenants were appointed by King Henry VIII. That was a 3-year tenure, so I'm now back to being a deputy lieutenant. I'm patron for several charities. I'm a school governor, school trustee, etc., etc., etc. So back to the vote of thanks. Most of us are aware of the achievements of the Windrush diaspora in sports, entertainment, politics, religion, etc. But really about the West Indian pioneers in post-war development of the trade union movement and industrial relations. I'm extremely honored to be given the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee, our community, and my other colleagues. And I thank the Almighty that we can all be gathered here today after what we've gone through over the last year, and the anniversary of the 20th anniversary of the September 11th. So thank God that we are here. And I've always told my friends, even when I was growing up, it is better to look rich and be poor than to look poor and be rich. Because like you, well, not like you, I'm not very educated, but I know that a lot of doors have been opened to me because of how I look. They don't even want to hear how I sound, but how I look, I got through the door, and then I can bluff my way. So I've been bluffing my way through life. I thank you, sir, for choosing Birmingham and the Legacy Center to launch your book. And Maxie was alluding to this little quote before, that is, it said that when a lion learns to ride, no longer will only the hunter's story be told, be read. More of these stories need to be told, taught in our schools, in our Sunday schools, in our supplementary schools, and in our homes. I would like to encourage each and every one of you today to buy one of the books, or 2 or 3, and share them with your families, your children, your grandchildren, etc. I would like to thank the organizers of this event and all the participants in today's event. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy Saturday afternoon to join us here. And we don't have many book launches for black people in the city, so thank you all for coming. I wish there were more people. I was hoping there were more. I'm sure that you've all been enlightened and educated. And finally, I'd like to thank all the sponsors of this afternoon, the Afro-Caribbean Millennium Center, New Style Radio, Alderman Philip Murphy and others that are here from New Style Radio, Dr. Marcia McCloughlin are here. They're calling her a different name this evening. But that's from the Phoenix newspaper and her team. Ricky Delaney from Prison Link Up and BBC WM. Please look out, and I have to do a little plug-in now. I'm at the end of the thank you. Thank you all. And please look out for information of AGN Local Heroes Award. We'll be having a virtual award ceremony. We'll be streaming it live this year again due to the COVID-19 and uncertainty. So it will be on 16th of October. We'll be sending out flyers soon. And we are hoping to that next year we'll be back to normal because we have in mind to do quite a few things to celebrate Jamaica's 60th anniversary of independence. And when you decide to travel, Diamond Travel is still open for business. And we're not limited to offer holidays to Jamaica only. We can show you the world and save your pounds. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for coming. God bless you all. And I think Martin Livermore would like to do a little plugging of something that he's organizing. So maybe, Martin, you'd like to come up. Thank you very much.
Has to listen a lot. Anyway, right, Senator Clark, and I have to recognise the former Vice Lord Lieutenant, Dr. Beverly Lindsay, Dr. McLaughlin, Honourable Guests. For those who don't know me, I'm Professor Martin Livermore. I am also one of the region's Deputy Lieutenants, but specifically as a Professor of Education, Health and Life Science, I am truly of the opinion that we have got talents, not only in our region, but further afield. But that requires that talent to be nurtured, the opportunity to be opened, and the access to always to be given. To that extent, I've encouraged the Lord Lieutenant and colleagues, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, all to come together to actually look at the opportunities, not in uniform, but in technology, cybersecurity, STEMs, the areas that our young people are truly gifted. And on the 17th and the 18th of this month, not too far from here, in Perry Bar, Birmingham, we are looking for 200 young people, male and female, who will get a taste of what the technology within the services are about. Not just paid apprenticeships, valued internships. Those things, as you know, Senator Clark, with the opportunity, with the doors open, one can fly. But without the ability to enter, the doors remain closed. Those in our community have got the ability to open those doors to our young people. Let next Saturday be a doorway for those within this region to shine a little bit more. Thank you very much.
Just a little story I think you'll find interesting about this man. We've done him a favor at New Style Radio because of Dr. Lindsay's recommendation. Now, slightly reluctant we did it, because of course he's a professor, and of course I thought he was a white man. So it shows that we should be very careful before we make judgments. Because when I heard, professor and all that, very interesting. I learned a lot from that. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Martin. I think that's critical for our development in the community. And just to further embarrass Martin, he also sits on the Windrush Committee. So if you want to bend his ear about how that's going on, please do. And thank you very much, Dr. Lindsay, for that vote of thanks. As always, critique and to the point, and very gracious as well. Thank you very much. And can I now open the floor, so to speak, in terms of signing books? I think there are refreshments at the back if you want to have your teas and coffee. And could I also ask you, to try and respect distancing? We're not fully out of COVID, so just please respect the distance. So don't all rush up here in terms of your books. Just try and be a little bit patient in terms of waiting as well. Thank.
My dear friend, and is Mr. Cox?
No, 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 not wrong.
I'm going to take this quickly. How do you want them, Daniel?
So to hit you around this side, please. We've got three on either side. Okay, to hit you around this circle. Perfect. Thank you. Guys, you all squeeze in a bit more for me. Perfect. Right. All just a little bit closer. That's it. If you've got a book, would you mind holding it up?
Yes, yes, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
Have you got any other copies around?
Yeah, we should all book.
Can you get out 4 more copies of the sign off of the book? Somebody?
We will return them as valuable.
There we go. That's the yeah. Look. Right, can we get a big smile from everybody, please? All this way. Perfect, thank you. And again.
Hang on.
Oh, yep.
All right, then we've got a couple more books.
Right, and again, big smile to everyone.
Daniel, finish.
One more. There we go, thank you.
Can we just have one with Becky?
Yeah. You're wise to take it with you.
Absolutely.
Good idea. Where is his lovely wife?
I got to look after you. I got to look after you. You understand?
in the office. Yeah. Very colourful, very interesting. I have to still have my record. Michael.
Where's the paper, Steve?
This way, please, sir.
Oh, sorry. I was getting one minute.
Oh, sorry, sir.
You do that first.
Take a mic.
Okay, now.
It's the way my phone works.
Face the camera, please. Look sharp, look sharp. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me take this off. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Give us that smile, Mr. Duffy. Come on. This could be a front page.
How's business going?
I love your story. Oh, this is a famous problem. What you said about This one is a bad one.
Oh yes, let me break this metric. Yeah, please.
Good to see you. You're London based. So when you were my family's name, my dad's side come from No, I wouldn't know them more than some because I didn't grow in the area, you know, but that's where I'm from. As I said, I'm from that side.
She's fine.
Nice to meet you. I hope I'll see you some other time.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for being here. Yes,
I must have seen it because I've been to most of the diaspora conference.
You've been to? Derek appeared.
I have organized the first two.
I see you are associated with the Association of
some sort of conspiracy going on.
No, I don't mean there's no selfishness in there. I don't think you might talk about what you're where we are. She's square. That's why I've been used to there. That's what they were. People who travel by plane, that's what they were.
Unless it's a place like this, Marcel, you're just walking off and I've seen you for years and you just walking off. You look so beautiful. I'm keeping away from everyone. Well, let's start. I'm back from a couple of weddings. Tomorrow I have my first. So, Rosie,
brought out the book for you. Your name was in the book.
Well, I know my name's always in it, but I just,
Your name was in the book.
but I'm always,
I acknowledge you.
why am I sweating? Right, all right, I will be in touch. Just tell me. I've been anyway.
I understand because although I'm out, I still feel afraid. When I go out, when I go out,
And steaming is very bad.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen you before because I've been around. I was at the last one.
I know you do stuff.
You were? No,
Hello, Miss Lindsay. How are you? Thank you. Well, so I interviewed you yesterday. My name's Charmaine. I interviewed you on my show yesterday. Yes.
because I asked
He did, I must say, he did. Where is that? Wonderful lady.
Nice to meet you too.
No, I saw the interview went very. Come on. Thanks, Sean. I mentioned you when I was speaking, but I saw the chairman was looking at it. The chairman was looking at what your.
I'm going to send you off
I refuse what I'm going to say.
edits them, so I can send it to Philly and he can send you and you can listen back. But I think
my son
oh, he's taped it as well. Okay, but I think it went really well. I wish I was able to hear some of this background and then because it would have been a completely different interview. But it wasn't. I know, but it was a promotion. But at some stage, I'd like to interview you again. My show is politics and current affairs. So politics is my thing, and I'd like to yes, and your experience and stuff like that. Yes, no one's difficult now because when you look at politics more, people that fight
You see what I'm saying? I mentioned our connection. And I mentioned obviously
the Conservatives, they think they've done their work because there's black faces there. It's like they don't recognise the difference between the Caribbean and African as well, and I think that's some of the problems. I'll speak to you again soon.
Our biggest problem with our leaders is their ego.
I know. I'm not being careful. Even if we great Dr. Walter Rodney, he should have been. I don't want to blame him. I don't want to blame him. It's great. I know the Seal House, the musical with Sailor James, television and warned him about the assassination. And then it went through the contract and then to Volunteer Rights actually.
Yes. And the policies that will continue to organise. We saw this in Guinea. Admittedly with rugby, rugby speakers from the same